Hi, everybody, and welcome to Divine Thursday for July 9th, 2020. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. All right, today on Divine Thursday, we are going to be looking at the Earthquake spell. This is a spell that has been around for a long time in D&D, and we're going to look at how it has changed over the different editions, and we will start by diving straight into the 5th edition spell, as we always do. All right, Earthquake in 5th edition is an 8th level spell that is available for clerics, druids, and sorcerers. So definitely falls under the divine. Sorcerers, that gets a little bit into that arcane, but explain that away by depending on what sort of patron the sorcerer has or what sort of power source the sorcerer has. One action, the range is 500 feet. It requires verbal, somatic, and material components. Lasts for a minute. Evocation spell requires dex save and it deals bludgeoning damage. Now it requires a pinch of dirt, a piece of rock, and a lump of clay to cast this spell. So you create a seismic disturbance at a point in the ground you can see within range. For the duration, an intense tremor rips through the ground in a 100-foot radius circle centered on that point and shakes creatures and structures in contact with the ground in that area. The ground becomes difficult terrain. Each creature on the ground is concentrating must make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the concentration is broken. You cast a spell at the end of each turn. You spend concentrating on it. Each creature on the ground in the area must make a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is knocked prone. Spell can have additional effects depending on the terrain in the area as determined by the GM. So fissures open throughout the spell's area at the start of your next turn after you cast a spell. Total of 1d6 such fissures open in a location chosen by the DM. Each is 1d10 times 10 feet long, 10 feet wide, and extends from 1d10 times 10 feet deep, 10 feet wide, and extends from one edge of the spell's area to the opposite side. A creature standing on a spot where a fissure opens must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or fall in. And of course, they take that damage for every 10 feet fallen. So a creature that successfully saves moves with the fissure's edge as it opens. Fissure that opens beneath the structure causes it to automatically collapse. Tremor deals 50 bludgeoning damage to any structure in contact with the ground in the area when you cast a spell, and at the start of each of your turns until the spell ends. If a structure drops to 0 hit points, it collapses and potentially damages nearby creatures. A creature within half the distance of a structure's height must make a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes 5d6 bludgeoning damage from debris falling, is knocked prone, and is buried in the rubble, requiring a DC 20 athletics check as an action to escape. DM can adjust the DC higher or lower depending on the nature of the rubble. Okay. On a successful save, creature takes half as much damage and doesn't fall prone or become buried. So this is why it's an 8th level spell. Is it literally reshapes the earth in a limited area. It affects all creatures that are standing on the ground in that area. And it will even collapse buildings in that area. So that's why Earthquake is a very powerful spell. And as we'll see, it has always been so. We can trace Earthquake all the way back to original D&D, and it was a 7th level clerical spell at that point. Now, interesting fact, in original D&D, and I think all the way up through 2nd level, or through 2nd edition, I'm sorry, there were only 7 levels of divine spells, clerical spells. You did not have the 8th and 9th level clerical spells like you find in later editions of the game. So a 7th level clerical spell would be kind of equivalent today to an 8th or ninth level spell in 5th edition. So that's why it was a 7th level spell then. The range is 120 yards. Duration is 1 turn. Now, a turn is a specific unit of time, 10 minutes in original D&D. So it's a 1 minute requiring concentration in 5e. They didn't have concentration in, at least not the way we think of it, in original D&D. So it just would last 10 minutes. The spell causes a section of earth to shake and opens large cracks in the ground. A 17th level caster can affect area up to 60 feet square, adding 5 feet to each dimension with each experience level above 17th. Now, why do they say 17th? Because you had to be 17th level to cast 7th level spells in this edition. For example, an 18th level cleric affects area up to 65 feet square, 19th level 70 feet square, and so forth. So again, like we've talked about with other spells, the effect just automatically increases as you get higher in level. Within the area of effect, all small dwellings are reduced to rubble and larger constructions are cracked open. Earthen formations, hills, cliffsides, etc. form rock slides. Cracks in earth may open and engulf one creature in 6 determined randomly. Crushing them when a die roll randomly determines that a creature is in danger of falling into a crack and being crushed, the character gets a saving throw versus death to escape falling in. So that's, yeah, pretty serious there. But the randomness is you roll 1d6 for every creature in the area, and if it comes up a 1, oh, hey, they're about to fall in, they get to make a saving throw. Try to avoid it. All right, first edition AD&D, 7th level, again, because that's the highest level, range 120 feet indoors, 120 yards outdoors, which is the same as the original D&D. Components, verbal, somatic, and material. And hey, guess what? Pinch of dirt, piece of rock, and a lump of clay. Exactly the same components. A lot of times when spells have a long history in the game, the material components don't change that much. So whatever, if the spell has been around for many editions, it's fairly certain, not 100%, but you can be fairly certain that the material components listed in 5e are going to be the same as the ones that the previous editions said. So when this spell is cast by a cleric, local tremor, a fairly high strength rips through the ground, shock is over in 1 melee round. The earthquake affects all terrain, vegetation, structures, and areas in its locale. The area of effect of the earthquake is circular, diameter being 1/2 or 5 feet indoors, 5 yards outdoors, for every level of experience of the cleric casting it. So a 20th level cleric would cast the spell with a okay, no, I'm sorry. Half. A half a foot indoors or a half a yard outdoors. So the 20th level cleric casts an earthquake spell with a 10-foot or 10-yard diameter area of effect. So this is really a much smaller area of effect than we've seen in the other editions so far. So then it actually goes through and tells you what the effects are on various terrain. Cliffs, cave or caverns, it will collapse the roof. Cliffs, it crumbles, causing landslide. Ground cracks open, creatures to fall in and be killed. And then the ratio. So for small creatures, it's 1 in 4. Medium creatures, 1 in 6. Large creatures, 1 in 8. Marsh, it drains water off to form muddy, rough ground. Tunnel, it caves in. And then the effects it has on vegetation. Small growth, no effect. Trees, 1 in 3 are uprooted and fall. Structures, all structures sustain 5d12 structural damage. Those taking full damage are thrown down in rubble, and creatures see above. So it's basically the size category of creatures. So this gives you a little bit more specific information about what can happen. And this kind of thing here, where it talks about the specific terrains, that can be kind of useful to describe in a 5e game. Okay, your cleric casts Earthquake. Okay, well, where are you? We're in a mine. Okay, mine. Tunnels. Oh, okay, well, hey, congratulations, guys. You just caved in the tunnels on yourselves. Roll up some new characters. All right. And then second edition, Earthquake, elemental sphere of Earth, range 120 yards, 5-foot diameter per level. So in this spell is cast by a priest, local tremor of fairly high level, blah 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 blah, and it. Okay, now here's an interesting thing. Area of effect is circular with diameter 5 feet for experience. So a 20th level priest casts an earthquake spell with a 100-foot diameter area of effect. Solidly built structures with foundations reaching down to bedrock sustain 1/2 damage, 1/4 damage if they score above 50% on a saving throw. So all your buildings get saving throws in this edition. Earth elemental opposed to the caster in the area of effect can negate 10% to 100% of the effect. Other magical protections and wards allowed by the DM may also reduce or negate this effect. If cast under sea, this spell may, at the discretion of the DM, create a tsunami or tidal wave. Material components are a pinch of dirt, piece of rock, and a lump of clay. And then here we go. We're back with the same terrain and vegetation and structure and creatures. So everything there is all exactly the same as first edition. All right, now third edition D&D. This is where you finally get to 8th and 9th level cleric spells. So Earthquake gets pushed up to 8th level. Cleric 8, Destruction 8, Druid 8, Earth 7. And the range, long, 400 feet plus 40 feet per level. So you can cast this way away from yourself. 80-foot radius spread, so 160-foot diameter, 1 round duration, and then intense but highly localized tremor rips the ground. Effects last for 1 round, during which time creatures on the ground can't move or attack. Spellcaster on the ground must make a concentration check DC 20 plus spell level, or lose any spell he or she tries to cast. So if you're trying to cast a 5th level spell, that's a DC 25 concentration check. So that's pretty powerful, which you know it should be to thwart the effects of an 8th level spell, or to counter the effects of an 8th level spell. Earthquake affects all terrain, vegetation, structures, creatures in the area. Specific effect of earthquake depends on the nature of the terrain. And then, cave, cavern, or tunnel. Spell collapses the roof, and then it gives you the damage. Earthquake cast on the roof of a very large cavern could also endanger those outside the actual area but below the falling debris. Cliffs. Causes the cliff to crumble. Landslide that travels horizontally as far as it fell vertically. Earthquake cast at the top of a 100-foot cliff would sweep debris 100 feet outward from the base of the cliff. So any creature in the path takes 8d6 points of damage. Gives you the saving throw and what the effect is if you make the saving throw. Open ground. Have to make a dex or reflex save to avoid falling down. Every creature on the ground has 25% chance to fall into a fissure, and then reflex DC 20 to avoid the fissure. All fissures grind shut, killing any creatures still trapped within them. And any structure takes 100 points of damage, enough to collapse a typical wooden or masonry building, but not a structure built of stone or reinforced masonry. Hardness does not reduce this damage, nor does it have damage as damage dealt to objects normally is. And then any creature caught inside a collapsing structure takes this damage, 8d6. Bludgeoning, and then there's the save for it. River, lakes, and marshes. Fissures open underneath the water, draining away the water from the area and forming muddy ground. Soggy marsh or swampland becomes quicksand for the duration of the spell, sucking down creatures and structures. Each creature in the area must make a DC 15 reflex save or sink down in the mud and quicksand. End of the spell, the rest of the body of water rushes in to replace the drained water, possibly drowning those caught in the mud. And then any creature pinned beneath rubble takes 1d6 points of non-lethal damage per minute while pinned. Pinned creature falls unconscious, he or she must make a DC 15 Constitution check or take d6 points of lethal damage each minute thereafter until freed or dead. So yeah, this is kind of a nasty spell, and it has always been something that can cause a great deal of grief to the enemies of the party. Or conversely, it could cause a great deal of grief to the party and their allies should, should a DM decide to give Earthquake to a villain to cast against the party. But, only mean DMs would do that, wouldn't they? I mean, wouldn't they? All right. So anyway, that's our review of the Earthquake spell and how it's changed over the history of the game. If you like the content that we post on this channel, please go ahead and click the subscribe button, ring the notification bell. That'll let you know every time a new video posts to the channel. In the description below, you will find how you can follow me on all the social media and everything like that. And I'd love to hear about your experience with the Earthquake spell. As a player, have you ever used this in a campaign? What was the most fun or most effective use you've seen of this spell in a game you were playing? Or if you're a DM, how have you seen this used in a game you're running? Love to see the comments about that below. All right. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Really appreciate you watching. Next week, we will be looking at another divine spell, but I hope that between now and then you will check out the other daily videos that we drop on different topics related to D&D. Thank you so much for your time today. Take care, and hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Good night.